Okay, so this is in fact drawn from the work of Robert Selden, and I am Bruce Goodwin, as advertised, currently Senior Laboratory Fellow at Lawrence Livermore. So let's go to the next view graph. So the outline here is, I'm going to tell you why I'm giving this talk, and then I'll tell you the conclusion up front. Then I'll talk a bit about plutonium and what it's like, and then the three things that sort of bear on how it could be used in nuclear explosives, critical mass, its radioactivity, and its neutron background. And then finally, I will talk about the application directly to a nuclear explosive and then tell you what I conclude from this. I can have the next view graph. So why give this talk? Henry sort of told you this. Contrary to what a lot of organizations, specifically nuclear power types typically, say, reactor-grade plutonium can make a very serviceable nuclear weapon. Having designed nuclear weapons myself, I could make a just fine nuclear weapon that you'd have a hard time distinguishing from a weapon made with weapons-grade plutonium out of reactor-grade plutonium. There are very large stockpiles of this stuff around the world, especially in a number of non-nuclear weapon states, the most prominent being Japan. They own 47 metric tons of this stuff, and they actually have 11 metric tons in country in Japan, and you can make roughly 1,500 nuclear weapons out of that stockpile of reactor-grade plutonium. And they constitute a very powerful latent weapons capability. And obviously, this is an issue for safeguards policy. Mixed oxide fuels, because plutonium-based economy, as Henry put it, becomes a proliferation source and risk. And nuclear electric expended fuels become a proliferation risk because you can fairly easily separate the plutonium from those fuels. You can have the next view graph. So I call it disinformation because after 45 years, this has got to be known to these people. So the World Nuclear Organization, I'll just read a little bit of this. They claim that for weapons use, plutonium-240, which is an isotope, a large isotope in reactor-grade plutonium, is considered a serious contaminant due to a higher neutron emission and higher heat production. And so any significant portion of 240 in it would make it hazardous to the bomb makers as well as probably unreliable and unpredictable. This is nonsense, and I'll tell you why. From Wikipedia, the source of all knowledge, they claim that if you make a weapon out of reactor-grade plutonium, the fizzle explosion in a range of 100 tons to 2 kilotons in a Fat Man-type device. That's not true. And that assuming the non-trivial issue of heat generation from the higher content of plutonium-238 could be overcome, a premature initiation from the spontaneous fission of plutonium-240 would ensure a low explosive yield in such a device. And so that somehow the apprehensions about reactor-grade plutonium are overblown. If I could have the next view graph. And probably the most egregious here is from the Council for Nuclear Fuel Cycle in Japan. The advocacy that nuclear weapons can be made from plutonium extracted from electricity generating power reactors would be too innocent a notion, and it would be a shame to take advantage of such oversimplified non-nuclear logic and use it as a political agenda. We must end this kind of nonsense. The truth, however, as I hope I will convince you of, is however, inconvenient for these folks. Next view graph. So the bottom line up front, this is from the United States Department of Energy Non-Proliferation and Arms Control Assessment of Weapons Usable Fissile Material Storage and Excess Plutonium Disposition Alternatives. You can't have too long a title if you work for the government. A potential proliferating state or subnational group using designs and technologies no more sophisticated than basically Fat Man could build a nuclear weapon from reactor-grade plutonium that would have an assured, reliable yield of 1 or a few kilotons. Read that as a minimum yield of 1 kiloton. and a most probable yield, which unfortunately is classified, and I can't tell you, but significantly higher than 1 kiloton, a most probable yield. And further, that an advanced nuclear weapon state, such as the United States, Russia, China, France, the UK, probably Japan, could produce weapons from reactor-grade plutonium having reliable explosive yields, weights, and other characteristics generally comparable to those of weapons made from weapons-grade plutonium.